In 2001, actor Mark Ruffalo had a vivid dream in which he had a brain tumor. The dream scared him so much that he went to his doctor for a precautionary MRI. Shocking the entire staff, test results showed he had a golf ball-sized mass behind his left ear. A man from India crashed his $700,000 Aston Martin to spare the life of a stray dog. Missouri surgeon Ted Rummel is paralyzed from the waist down, but that doesn't stop him from saving lives. Ginny Burton was a lifelong drug addict with 17 felony convictions on her record. But she eventually managed to turn her life around and graduated from college with high honors at the age of 48. During the Nigerian Civil War, the two sides agreed to a 48-hour ceasefire because Pele was in town for a match. Everyone wanted to be free to watch it without having to worry about the war. An African boy named Ulrich grew up with his legs bent backwards due to a rare condition. That was until a hospital called Africa Mercy performed a free surgery on him and finally gave him the ability to walk. A vet from Australia gave this parrot new prosthetic wings after they were severely trimmed by its former owner. A Russian dog named Shavi was hit by a car and left for dead by the driver. She was saved by a woman named Nina who took her in, nursed her back to health, and found her a new home. Shavi then managed to escape from the home and traveled 200 miles to return to Nina. This homeless man jumped into a river to save his rabbit after she was thrown over a bridge by a passerby. He was then flooded with food donations and job offers as the passerby was charged with animal cruelty. Insane Coincidences, Part 8. A woman snorkeling near Australia noticed this fish was wearing a gold wedding ring. She says she tried to catch it, but it swam away too quickly. A woman from Michigan gave birth on 8808, 9909, and 101010. The odds of this happening were 50 million to 1. A man was photographing a plane crossing over a rainbow when it was struck by lightning at the exact same time. This little girl was born with the exact same white patch of hair as her mother. In 2009, a man was kidnapped in Mexico immediately after giving a lecture on how not to be kidnapped in Mexico. In 1970, a dead sperm whale was blown up with dynamite and chunks of its flesh were launched up to 700 feet away. One of the pieces destroyed a brand new car that was purchased during a promotion called Get a Whale of a Deal. Here are some sketchy facts about 9/11. Before 9/11, FBI counterterrorism expert John O'Neill urged the federal government to take the threat of Al-Qaeda more seriously. But he was eventually pushed into early retirement due to disagreements with the Bureau. He then went on to head security at the World Trade Center, where he was killed on 9/11. On that same morning, President George Bush's cousin Jim Pierce had a meeting scheduled on the 105th floor of the South Tower. But his group was apparently too large, so they rescheduled the meeting across the street at the last minute. Just months before 9/11, the World Trade Center's lease was sold to Larry Silverstein. Larry then took out an insurance policy that happened to include terrorism in its coverage. After 9/11, he took the insurance company to court and claimed that he should be paid double since there were 2 attacks. He won the case and was awarded $4.5 billion. Artifact Porn, Part 7. The Hansgavel dagger from Denmark is just under 4,000 years old. It's considered one of the most impressive examples of ancient flint knapping. This 16th century ring from Germany unfolds into an astronomical sphere. The earliest known sunglasses were created by Inuit hunters about 2,000 years ago. They were made to shield their eyes from the blinding glare of sunlight that reflected off the snow. This drawing of a Nosferatu-like creature was found in a 15th century Polish manuscript. The Devil's Bridge is a 19th century bridge in Germany that was designed to make a perfect circle with its reflection. About 1,000 years ago, a Viking craftsman dropped all of his equipment in a lake on the island of Gotland. In 1936, the perfectly preserved wooden chest containing all of his tools was found at the bottom of the former lake. This incredibly detailed sculpture was created by Antonio Carradini in 1752. It's a depiction of his mother wearing a weightless veil and was carved completely from a block of marble. The incredible dental work on this 4,000-year-old Egyptian mummy shows how advanced they were in the field of dentistry. These taxidermied frogs were found inside of an old French mansion that had been sealed for more than 100 years. It took Italian archaeologist Italo Gismondi 36 years to build this insanely accurate scale model of ancient Rome. This is a photo of archaeologists uncovering a mosaic in Turkey that remained untouched for 2,000 years. These handprints can be found on the walls of Pedikir Cave in Indonesia. This artwork is estimated to be roughly 40,000 years old. Judith Love Cohen was an American engineer who helped create the guidance system that brought Apollo 13 back home safely. While working on a crucial equation one day, she went into labor but took the problem with her to the hospital. She soon called her boss to tell him that she finished it. Then she gave birth to Jack Black. NASA employs a man named George Aldridge to sniff everything before they send it to space. If George doesn't like the smell, it doesn't go to space. The Kessler syndrome is the theory that a small collision of our satellites could cause a major catastrophe for humanity. The collision could create a cascade where satellites break into tiny pieces and destroy other satellites, until the Earth is surrounded by a massive cloud of flying shrapnel. This would make it impossible to leave the planet for many generations. In the year 2000, this man was given a 13-year sentence for armed robbery, but the state of Missouri somehow forgot to put him in prison. They only noticed the error 13 years later when it was time for his release. After being apprehended, he was officially freed when the courts determined he was a changed man. In Brazilian prisons, inmates can shorten their sentences by reading. For every book they read and write a report on, their sentences can be reduced by up to 4 days. The world's most wanted hacker was eventually hacked and arrested because his password was his cat's name plus 123. In 2018, the world's most expensive bottle of vodka was stolen in Denmark. The bottle was made from silver and gold and had a diamond-encrusted cap, making it worth $1.3 million. Miraculously, it was found empty on a construction site just a few days later. During the Vietnam War, a platoon of American soldiers were told to destroy a village that was taken over by the Viet Cong. But instead of aggressors, they found unarmed villagers, most of them women, children, and old men. Acting on initial orders, the soldiers began brutally executing the innocent civilians in broad daylight. After hundreds had been killed, Major Hugh Thompson landed in the area and struggled to figure out what had happened. Upon realizing his fellow American soldiers were responsible, he landed his helicopter between the soldiers and the Vietnamese people. He then told the troops that if they continued the killings, he and his crew would open fire on them. This finally ended the massacre, but Major Thompson was shunned as an American traitor. It wasn't until 1998 that the army finally acknowledged he had done the right thing. Yasuke was a former African slave who arrived in Japan in 1579. His black skin caused such a sensation that a powerful warlord wished to meet him. They developed a friendship, and Yasuke eventually became the first and only black samurai. In 1971, 17-year-old Julianne Kopka was sucked out of an airplane after it was struck by lightning. She fell 2 miles to the ground, still strapped to her seat, but somehow managed to survive. She then spent the next 11 days alone in the Amazon jungle before being rescued by a logging team. During World War II, Private Thomas Baker was gravely wounded by the Japanese but refused to give up the fight. He told his comrades to leave him propped up against a tree with nothing but a pistol containing 8 bullets. He was later found dead with an empty pistol and the bodies of 8 Japanese soldiers all around him. These are some heroes of 9/11 that everyone should know about. In the 1980s, actor Steve Buscemi was a New York City firefighter for 5 years. So when 9/11 happened, he showed up at his old firehouse to volunteer. For an entire week, he worked 12-hour shifts digging through rubble to try to find people. When his mom told him about the attack, ex-Marine Jason Thomas retrieved his Marine uniform and sped down to Ground Zero immediately. With the help of another Marine, he managed to save 2 policemen who were stuck in the rubble. A guide dog named Roselle led a group of people, including her blind owner, down 78 flights of stairs before the North Tower collapsed. She stopped once, only to give kisses to a woman who was having a panic attack. The only off-duty NYPD officer who was killed in 9/11 had signed his retirement papers that morning. But instead of leaving his badge, John William Perry decided to pick it up one last time. In honor of Shark Week, let's take a look at some of the weirdest sharks in the world. The frilled shark is a species of deep water fish that is rarely seen by humans. Often called a living fossil, the shark is believed to have long been linked to mythical sea serpents. The extremely rare viper dogfish was only discovered in 1986. They're a bioluminescent species of shark and look like something straight out of a horror movie. Only discovered in 1976, the megamouth shark is an extremely rare species of freshwater shark. Less than 100 of them have ever been seen or caught by humans. Known for its protrusible jaw and nail-like teeth, the goblin shark has only been seen about 50 times since its discovery in 1897. The Greenland shark is believed to be the longest living vertebrate animal in the world. They can live up to 400 years old and don't reach puberty until the age of 150. Dolphins love interacting with pregnant women because they communicate using ultrasound. Not only can they hear the mother's heartbeat, but also the baby's, and they find this very fascinating. When mating, flatworms engage in violent penis fencing to determine who will be the father. The winner who stabs the other with its pecker remains a male while the loser becomes a female. Cockroaches find humans so disgusting that if they touch you, they will run away and clean themselves immediately. If a female fox dies, their mate will stay single forever. But if a male fox dies, his widow will search for a new mate immediately. Sharks have survived 4 out of the 5 mass extinction events and have been around for more than 400 million years. This means they're older than dinosaurs, older than trees, and even older than your mom. After Elvis died on the toilet at the age of 42, his doctor said the cause of death was an embarrassing case of chronic constipation. His stool was so backed up from drugs that he hadn't taken a dump in at least 4 months. If you're a man and you pee on a pregnancy test and it's positive, you most likely have testicular cancer. This is a photo of all the cars that never left the Giants Stadium commuter lot after 9/11. A team of firefighters from Wiltshire, England saved a group of piglets from a barn fire. 6 months later, the farmer sent them sausages made from the piglets as a thank you gift. Last year, Dutch police uncovered a soundproof torture chamber inside of a shipping crate in a warehouse. They found a dentist chair equipped with wrist and ankle straps as well as several medical tools and cameras. It's unclear how many victims were tortured in the room. Dating back to the early 1700s, the Old Gentleman of Rahe is the oldest diving suit in the world. It was once used to inspect the bottoms of sailing vessels. A 500-year-old church seemed to emerge from a Mexican reservoir after a drought dropped the waterline 80 feet. This 3,400-year-old Egyptian painting palette is so well preserved that it still contains the remnants of color pigments. The Eastern Island heads not only have bodies, but also detailed carvings on their surfaces. This carving of a dog appears to be glowing due to people touching it over hundreds of years. This photo shows the incredible detail on Michelangelo's statue of Moses. There's one small muscle on the forearm that's only visible when you lift your pinky. Because Moses is lifting his pinky, the muscle is contracted. This is a photo of a stripper posing in front of a judge in 1983. She was displaying that her bikini briefs were too large to expose her cooter to the undercover cops who arrested her. After a meticulous examination by the judge, the case was dismissed. In 2014, a man from Arizona stole a diamond worth $160,000 and traded it for $20 worth of weed. A group of thieves in England posed as mannequins in a department store just before it closed for the night. They then got away with stealing 10,000 pounds in merchandise. Jackie Chan's father was a spy while his mother was an opium dealer. They met through an arrest and fell in love. A python from Australia became addicted to meth after living in a drug lab. Police busted the lab before sending the snake to rehab for 7 months. This graveyard of animal bones was found inside the nest of a harpy eagle. Being the most powerful bird in the Amazon, they prey on species as big as monkeys, sloths, and even deer. Deeper than 30 feet underwater, there's no red light, so blood appears green. About 47 million years ago, whales had legs and lived both on land and in the sea. This is a perfectly camouflaged mossy-tailed gecko, found only in Madagascar. A pike jumped out of the water, likely chasing prey, got stuck in a tree and died. Eventually, a bird came around and built a nest in its mouth. Africa's slowly ripping apart due to continental drift. In 2005, a large crack opened up along fault lines in Ethiopia that will continue to widen. Scientists say this will form an entirely new ocean within the next few million years. This is a World War II photo of a Japanese boy waiting for his turn to cremate his dead baby brother in Nagasaki. Photographer Joe O'Donnell said the boy was biting his lips so hard to avoid crying that it was bleeding. If your lungs were completely opened up and laid flat, they would cover the entire size of a tennis court. When the mummy of Ramses II was transported in 1974, it was issued an Egyptian passport that listed his occupation as deceased king. This 1955 device allowed the user to smoke an entire pack of cigarettes at once. Alzheimer's disease doesn't affect emotional memory as strongly as informational memory. As a result, Alzheimer's patients who are told bad news will often forget the news but will remain sad and have no idea why. In 2006, the Miami Hurricanes football team gathered in prayer for their teammate Brian Pata, who had been shot and killed. 15 years later, his teammate Rashawn Jones has been charged with his murder. This is why you should never smash someone's face into a birthday cake without knowing what's inside of it. A Florida lifeguard was fired for saving someone who was drowning because he went outside of his designated area. The executioner from the infamous Vietnam War photo opened a pizza joint in Virginia after the war. When elephants lose a mate, they sometimes refuse to eat and will lie down and shed tears until they starve to death. They're the only animals known to die as a result of heartbreak. Aaron Osborne was sick in bed with cancer and giving up. Ozzy asked Robin Williams to come visit. He randomly hopped in her sick bed and her family went from crying to laughing hysterically. Robin cheered her up so much that she went back to chemo the very next day. In 2018, Salvador Dali's body was exhumed 28 years after his death to resolve a paternity claim. Officials noted that his mustache was still perfectly intact in its classic 10 past 10 position. If you die in Amsterdam with no close relatives, a poet will write a poem for you and recite it at your funeral. A Japanese pilot who bombed a town in Oregon during World War II returned 20 years later to present his family's 400-year-old sword as a symbol of regret. His daughter later said that if he'd received a negative reaction, he would have used the sword to perform a ritual suicide instead. Keanu Reeves was filming The Matrix. His daughter was stillborn at 8 months. The tragedy caused he and his girlfriend to break up shortly before she was killed in a car crash. Since then, he has donated most of his earnings from movies and has avoided serious relationships and having kids. In the 1500s, Mapuche warrior Galvarino had both his hands cut off as punishment for defying the Spanish. He returned home, raised an army, and fought the Spanish with blades tied to the stubs of his hands. Khalif Browder was imprisoned at Rikers Island for 3 years without a trial after allegedly stealing a backpack. He spent 730 days alone in solitary confinement whilst awaiting his trial. He was finally released in 2013 after his innocence was proven, but he took his own life just 2 years later. This extremely rare red sprite lightning was captured over Texas last year. This happens when a strong bolt of lightning is positively charged instead of negative. This sprite was estimated to be about 30 miles tall. Jonathan the Tortoise was born in 1832, 5 years before the Victorian era even started. Next year, he will turn 190, making him the oldest known land animal alive today. In 2012, French beekeepers couldn't figure out why their bees were producing blue and green honey inside their hives. That was until they discovered that the bees were visiting a local factory that produces M&Ms. Naked mole rats don't feel pain, can survive 18 minutes without oxygen, and are completely immune to cancer. They're also the only mammals that live in colonies like bees or ants, with one large queen mole rat who gives birth to all the others. After a Chinese construction company caused a reservoir to sink 10 feet, a 600-year-old Buddha carving was uncovered. Underwater archaeologists even found evidence of an ancient temple beneath the 12-foot-tall statue. This 2,000-year-old sapphire ring is believed to have belonged to Caligula, the third emperor of Rome. It includes an engraved portrait of his fourth and final wife, Cisonia. In Switzerland, there's a 500-year-old statue of a man eating a sack of babies, and no one is sure why. 1,600-year-old sling bullets from ancient Rome were found with the words "Take that" inscribed on them. This incredible sculpture from 1783 was carved completely from a block of marble, even including the handkerchief. The world's oldest unopened bottle of wine has remained sealed since the 4th century. It was found in a Roman tomb. In 2004, a baby hippo named Owen was swept away from his mother during a tsunami. He then mistook a 130-year-old tortoise for another hippo, and the two became best friends. Blood Falls is a glacier in Antarctica that pours out red plumes of liquid, making it look like the ice is bleeding. In the 1970s, two communities of chimpanzees that were once unified went to war with each other. It lasted 4 years and included many violent fights, murders, and kidnappings. It is the only documented war among chimpanzees in the wild. The dog on the left is an award-winning French bulldog named Arnie. On the right is also a French bulldog, but he was bred in Holland by Hallbuck's Kennel. They're a breeder trying to establish a new, healthier template for French bulldogs. Morbid Facts, Part 188. Arizona man Balbir Singh Sadi was a Sikh who became the victim of a hate crime. He was killed 4 days after 9/11 when a Boeing employee wanted to retaliate for the attacks on the World Trade Center. Sadi is listed on the Arizona State Memorial as a victim of 9/11. If you could harvest every organ and chemical in the human body, you would make around $45 million. This is a 1999 photo of Tom Klebold helping his son Dylan get ready for the Columbine prom. Little did he know, his son would help kill 13 people in the school just 3 days later. In 2015, sex worker Heather Saul shot and killed a man after grabbing his gun while he was trying to rape her. When police arrived to investigate, they found a massive kill kit in the dead man's car. They would later credit Heather with stopping an active serial killer. The singer of Peanut Butter Jelly Time died after an 11-hour standoff with police in 2002. During the ordeal, his brother-in-law Snoop Dogg attempted to calm him down and convince him to surrender. Your intestines know how to get back in the right place. When performing abdominal surgery and the intestines need to be moved, the doctor will simply stuff them back in. There's a condition called Ondine's curse which causes sufferers to die if they fall asleep. The only treatment is for patients to wear a ventilator every time they sleep. In 2001, a man donated his kidney to his wife who was suffering from renal failure. 8 years later, when his wife filed for divorce, he demanded her to return the kidney or pay over $1 million. A photo was taken of a group of people who crashed into the Andes in 1972. They were eventually saved but had to resort to cannibalism to survive for nearly 3 months. They're all smiling in the photo, but it becomes quite disturbing when you realize there's a human spine on the ground next to them. When actor-comedian Red Fox was dying of a heart attack while on set, nobody offered to help him. This was because everyone thought it was nothing more than the fake heart attack act he was famous for. When James Bulger went missing in 1993, police became optimistic when they found out he was last seen with children. Sadly, this was a false hope since the 2 boys who kidnapped James went on to torture him for hours before leaving him for dead on some train tracks. His body was found so horribly mutilated that coroners couldn't even determine how he died. Just 2 years after filming Ferris Bueller, Matthew Broderick killed 2 women while driving on the wrong side of the road in Ireland. He said he had no recollection of the incident and got off with a $175 fine. A male gorilla named Michael learned sign language and once used it to describe his mother being shot and killed by poachers. 2 years ago, a distress message was found in a can of sardines saying, "We are Sudanese laborers enslaved by this company." An investigation was opened by Egyptian authorities, but nothing ever came of it. Genghis Khan would marry off one of his daughters to the king of an allied nation and then assign his new son-in-law to military duty. As Khan expected, most of these son-in-laws would die in combat, giving his daughters complete control over these nations. Seth MacFarlane and Mark Wahlberg were both booked to fly on American Airlines Flight 11, the first plane that crashed into the World Trade Center. Wahlberg decided last minute to fly to Toronto instead, while MacFarlane missed the flight by 10 minutes due to a hangover. Due to technical limitations, video game Deus Ex didn't include the Twin Towers in its skyline. The in-game explanation was that they were destroyed by a terrorist attack. In an episode of Johnny Bravo, there's a poster of a building on fire with the words "Coming Soon." This episode aired in April of 2001, just 5 months before 9/11. In August of 2000, the band Dream Theater recorded a live studio album called Live Scenes from New York. The album cover art features the New York City skyline with the Twin Towers on fire. Most disturbingly, the album was released on September 11, 2001.